Let's go. Okay. Let's say a prayer. Father, please bless this exercise, and I pray that your Spirit would be here to guide the things I say. And I pray, Lord, that this would be a benefit and a blessing to others. Hello. Here at Incarnation, we've been going through a sermon series in the book of Revelation. And at the same time, it's season 2 of the Apple TV show Severance, which my family has been watching. And we really love Severance. But right now, we're kind of more than halfway through season 2. They're releasing 1 episode a week, which is a ridiculously slow way to watch a TV show. So what we do is we all sit down on the couch together and we're excitedly watching the next episode. And as soon as it's done, we pretty much immediately go onto YouTube to watch what the YouTubers are saying, the interpretation videos. And our favorite guy to watch is New Rockstars. Eric Voss, New Rockstars, is the guy we go to explain all the things that we missed in the episode. And what we're learning about Severance is it's the most unbelievably intricate and beautiful show. It's really well put together, and the attention to detail is just astonishing. So I learned just a couple of weeks ago that they bought more than 400 vintage cars between 30 and 50 years old and refitted all of them into perfect working order, just so that in every single shot of that show, even the cars parked half a mile down the street are perfectly in keeping with the whole aesthetic of the show. And that's just amazing to me. Now, I think what I want to do today is to kind of be Eric Voss for you in the book of Revelation. What I want to do is to kind of explain, here are the details you might have missed, and to kind of give you the backstory and some of the way the symbols are working. And this is by no means like essential to your understanding and enjoyment of the book, but I think it's fun, and I think you might get some enjoyment out of it. And I had my own Eric Voss on the book of Revelation, who is this guy, Austin Farrar. He's an Anglican priest from the 20th century, and he was also a Don of Oxford. And the former Archbishop Rowan Williams described him as possibly the greatest Anglican mind of the 20th century. So this guy's pretty heavyweight, and Rowan Williams, you might know, is no slouch intellectually either. So compared to these two great minds, I am but a minnow. But I did get very excited and very enchanted by Austin Farrar's unpacking of Revelation. His book, The Rebirth of Images, has been the inspiration for everything we're going to talk about right now. What I wanted to do is to make it all pretty and present it to the church, because I think this idea is beautiful. So here's what he discovered about Revelation. Here's what he came up with. First of all, Revelation is a unity. It's like a symphony. It's a beautiful poem, a work of art that all works together in beautiful unity. Its structure is that it is a sequence of 7 sevens. So you can think of it as 7 weeks. If God took 7 days to create the world, or it was really 6 days and a day of rest, then he takes 7 weeks at the end of the Bible to decreate and recreate the world. And so those weeks we see them in the sequences of 7. So first of all, we have 7 letters to the churches. Then the Lamb opens 7 seals. Then we hear the blasts of 7 trumpets. Then we see the revelation of 7 mysteries, beginning with the woman and the dragon. Then the angels pour out the 7 bowls, which are God's wrath, the final judgment. And then we see the 7 last things. And then finally we get into the eternal 7th week of rest in heaven. So that's the structure of the book, and it's creating then a temple at the end. The last thing we see is Jerusalem coming down like a bride beautifully prepared for her husband. That's like a temple that God is building throughout the book. And so for our second realization is that this whole symphony, this whole structure of 7 sevens is a blueprint for building the heavenly city. And the heavenly city is what we get at the end of it. So a bit like the second half of Exodus is all about building the tabernacle, and large portions of Samuel and Kings and Chronicles are about building the temple. Revelation is all about building the new temple, which is the city. The city and the temple are one in the book at the end. So when we get to the end, when we get to the final temple, what we find is that the city lies 4 square. So it is a square, and it has walls to the east and to the north and to the west and to the south. And on each of the 4 walls, it has 3 gates. So on the east 3 gates, on the north 3 gates, on the west 3 gates, on the south 3 gates. Each of the gates has a stone, a gemstone identified with it, and each of the gates has a name of the tribes of Jacob and also of the apostles of the Lamb in that final structure. And we realize that this whole shape looks very like a calendar. It looks like a calendar with 4 seasons, and each season has 3 months. So we're going to go around and see the shape of this calendar now. So we're going to start with the gemstones, 1 gemstone for each of the gates. And the list in Revelation 21 goes in this order: diamond, sapphire, carnelian, emerald, sardonyx, ruby, chrysolite, beryl, topaz. This is the chrysoprase, more specifically the peridot, which is a type of chrysoprase. The purple is the jacinth, and the final stone is the amethyst. So these are the 12 stones on the gates, and you can see as we go around that the names of the tribes are also on the gates. We're going to talk about those in more detail. So we realize that as it's a calendar, then the east wall here is the summer portion of the calendar. The north wall then is fall. The west wall is winter, and the south wall is spring. So what I want to do for you now is to go through month by month and explain how the images of Revelation work according to this final blueprint, this final structure, which is built around a calendar. And the way that symbols get put into the calendar is according to 3 rubrics, 3 rules. Okay, first of all, as John writes Revelation, the sequences of 7 walk through the calendar season by season. All right, so 1 trumpet per wall per season of the calendar, 1 scroll per season, etc. And as we go through then, walking through the book, we see how John is clothing each season with the symbols, and we put them on. That's the first rule. The second rule is the way that the Old Testament uses symbols and the way that they relate to the nations, relate to the calendar, especially when it comes to Israel and its feasts. So the Passover, the Feast of Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacles, they provide many of the symbolic justification for where these things go. And then the final rubric, and this serves the other 2, but it is present, is that John also uses the astrological calendar. Now this is surprising for evangelical Christians, but I think it's evident once you've had this idea and you read Revelation that it is what is happening. So the signs that we now know of as the zodiac also existed in John's time. They came from ancient Babylon. The Babylonian zodiac was almost identical to our modern zodiac. And then Ptolemy, the Greek astronomer, had listed 42 constellations. Many of them appear in their place according to the scheme. But I would say that it serves the other 2 in that if any of the symbols end up being in the wrong place for John's scheme, he's happy to move star signs. He doesn't move the other symbols. All right, so we're going to go around and see this here, and we're going to start at the beginning of the Jewish year, which started with the Passover. So as we set it up in this building, this corner of the room right here, which is between the west and the south walls, would be the spring equinox. So I've listed our months according to the Gregorian calendar that we're familiar with, just so it's simple. But we have to remember that that's only an approximation, because their calendar was a lunar calendar. They had different names for the months, and they started at the spring equinox with their new year. So when I say April, for example, was the first month, that's really March into April, because our spring equinox usually falls around March 21st. So think of it as March, April, and then May is April, May. But I didn't want to write all the lengthy explanation on all the signs, so I've just put April, but it is an approximation. All right, so we start here with the spring equinox, and the first thing, of course, we're thinking of is the Feast of Passover at the beginning of the Jewish year. So we have the altar of sacrifice for the Passover. And then we get into this first gate here, which is all about the Passover. The primary symbol for the Passover is the lamb. John's made it the lamb standing as though he was slain. The lamb we know is Jesus. And then the symbols attached to this chapter are all about the suffering of Jesus at the Passover. So as Christians, we have a great import to the Passover connected with the suffering of our Lord. Palm Sunday, his trial, his crucifixion. And so this crowd right here is like the angry crowd, the mob that is falsely accusing Jesus. And in the letters, he calls this mob the synagogue of Satan. Here is the symbol of tribulation. It's the kind of scorched sky, but also we've got this parsley leaf coming in. Parsley is the herb that is eaten at Passover in the Jewish feast as the herb of bitterness, the bitter herb, reminding them of slavery. The original Passover was the redemption of the people out of Egypt from their terrible time in slavery in Egypt. So this is like part of the suffering of it, but we also reimagine that suffering as the suffering of Jesus in his crucifixion. The chains, similarly, the key and the chains have a double meaning, because these are the chains of slavery from which Israel was released, and the key which released them, but there are also the chains of punishment and of bondage. So Jesus says he holds the key of David, which we understand symbolically is also the key of death and Hades. And then this final symbol, I don't know if you can read the text, but it says, my own new name. This is a place where Jesus promises his people the gift of his own new name. And we think of it as a crucifixion or Passover symbol because when Jesus died, he was given a new name, the name that is above every name. So all of this is associated with the month of April, the first month of the Jewish year, and the tribe of Gad. The name Gad means good fortune, and we might think of Good Friday, the good fortune of the release from sin that the Passover lamb brought us. The stone is the ruby, and the ruby is the perfect symbol of the blood of the Passover lamb. We're going to go on to May. So May is the second month of our calendar. This is in spring. Now, if we've just had crucifixion, we now have resurrection. So this whole panel is the symbol of resurrection. So here we have the bull of Taurus. In the star sign over April is Aries, the ram. John's made it the lamb. Now second, we have the bull of Taurus. Now the bull was a very central symbol of all the pagan myths in the ancient world. So if you look at the chief deities of Babylon and of Greece and of Rome, you find this recurring symbol of the bull. So Jupiter or Zeus associated himself with the Taurus. Taurus is the alpha male, the firstborn and the creator. Now, the bull is demoted in this whole symbol. The lion is the chief, the kingly creature in this whole symbol. The bull is demoted, but he still has a positive symbol because he is the firstborn. The bull is the firstborn and associated with being the firstborn from the dead, the firstborn resurrected. So he's a great symbol of resurrection. And then all the symbols connected with him are positive and connected with life. So here is the river of the water of life. We remember that Jesus said that when a person is born again, that he receives the Holy Spirit, which is like a river of the water of life pouring out of his heart. These are the symbols of victory, the bow of victory and the crown of triumph. This is like a laurel crown, the Roman symbol of Olympic victory. And then here is the symbol of the wheat sheaf to symbolize the first fruits. And it's got the Alpha and the Omega listed here. So Jesus says, I am the first and the last. First fruits, firstborn, all the firsts, all the resurrection symbols are collected on this panel. Joseph, the son of Jacob, we remember, was not the firstborn at all, because Reuben was the firstborn. He was number 11 in the sequence of sons, but he was the firstborn to Jacob's beloved wife, Rachel. And Joseph did inherit the rights of the firstborn in the Old Testament. So Joseph's two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, were both given a share in inheritance. And the idea of a double portion share was a symbol of the firstborn. Joseph in the Old Testament is called the one who has received the right of the firstborn. When we think about star signs, we obviously have Taurus here, which is the symbol in this part of the sky associated with this month, April into May. And we also have three other symbols on this panel which are associated with star signs. So there's Eridanus, which is the river. There is Orion, the bow hunter. And there is Perseus, the hero. So the hero's crown being here. So John is weaving in all of these star symbols into this same panel. Let's go on to June. Okay, so June has another major Jewish feast attached to it because we're getting into the Feast of Pentecost. So the star sign that we're under here is the star sign of Gemini, the twins, Castor and Pollux. And so you might wonder, how can the idea of Gemini the twins and the Feast of Pentecost be made to marry, be united into one set of symbols? And John does it here very, very artfully. So if we think about the Pentecost, in the Jewish thinking of Pentecost, what they celebrate in this feast is the coming of the law on Mount Sinai. So if you think about Sinai, it was a mountain that was wreathed in cloud. There was thunder and lightning. Thunder and lightning could be thought of as the twins of the sky. And then as the law was given, it was given to Moses, and it prescribed that cases be tried by two witnesses. And what John has done with this symbol is he's made the two witnesses central to the idea of this panel. So we've got the two olive trees are the main symbol of this panel. They are the two witnesses in the city. So it's reminding us of Pentecost, it's reminding us of the giving of the law. Another kind of two witnesses we had during the Exodus period were the pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud, the ways that the people followed the Lord. And one of the symbols down here is this pillar of cloud. The pillar of cloud is also used as a kind of doorway or gateway into heaven. So if we think about this as an earthly region of the fresh waters and the rivers, and we're about to cross into the heavenly region of the luminaries, then the cloud forms a bit of a gateway. So I've put a chariot on this pillar of cloud as well, and one of the Psalms says that the Lord makes the clouds his chariot. The Pentecost idea is carried on down here with the image of the heavenly city, a city established on the law of the Lord. Outside of that city, it says, are the dogs at the end of Revelation. So we've got the two dogs again, this double theme. And then against the good witness of this panel, we have the frog, this mean-looking, grumpy frog, who in Revelation emerges from the river and is a false witness. He bears false witness to the nations of the world. Again, carrying on with this twin theme, Simeon, in the blessing of Jacob in Genesis 49, it says that Simeon and Levi are brothers. They're blessed together, almost like they're twins. And so Simeon is part of that sort of pair of twins. And then another amazing thing about this panel is that it's associated with the emerald. And the emerald, in its Hebrew translation of the name, means flashing or brightness, and in its Greek translation of the name means rumbling or loud noise, right? Mm-hmm. So the emerald, in its very name, contains this double idea of lightning and thunder, which are the twins of the sky. So the stone is the stone of twins. We've got the two witnesses, we've got the two dogs, we've got the giving of the law, all of this Pentecost imagery strongly in this panel. Also with the star signs, this is the place in the sky where we get Canis Major and Canis Minor, the two dogs, and it's also the place in the sky where we get Auriga, the charioteer, as well as Gemini, the twins. So it all lines up very strongly, both theologically, Old Testament, and astrologically. Here we get to the summer solstice, and we have the strong symbols of Pentecost carrying through. So the scroll, the giving of the law, and the mountain of the thunder and lightning. On into July. Now we're into the summer season. The summer season overall is associated with the luminaries, the sun, the moon, and the stars. Luminaries also includes the leaders of the people, prophets, priests, and kings, and we're going to see all of those themes in this summer panel. All right, so here's July. Now, July in the Babylonian zodiac is associated with Cancer. Now, in our modern understanding of the zodiac, Cancer is the crab. You won't find any symbols of crabs anywhere on this panel. But in the Babylonian idea, it was the symbol of the scarab, and the scarab was the beetle that pushed the sun. So we do have the image of the sun as part of the symbols of this panel. And we also have the strong theme of a servant. You might think of the scarab pushing the sun as a servant. And servants are a strong theme of this panel. So, first of all, the donkey is the symbol of the servant of the Lord, especially of a prophet, right? You think about the way the prophets are associated with donkeys, Balaam being the key one who was a prophet, and his donkey spoke to him. So his symbol of a donkey would be strong on that. But the idea of a donkey being a servant is strong in the Old Testament and associated with prophets. The other symbols of servants here, we've got the great multitude of the servants of God, the white-robed, huge myriad army of martyrs, and then the bride of Christ, the strong symbol of the bride, the servant of the Lord, who gets to marry Jesus at the great marriage supper of the Lamb. This symbol of the eyes is a little strange, but I think the text shows that it belongs here, and it's the seven spirits, the seven eyes of the Lord, his symbol of great wisdom. Issachar, the tribe of Issachar, is a tribe that in Genesis 49 is called a donkey and called a servant. So I think those symbols are connected with Issachar there. And then the stone of this month is the carnelian, a deep orange colour, the colour of the setting sun. So this panel is sons and servants. We're going to get on to August. August is the tribe of Judah, the Lion of Judah. This is the central panel of the whole scheme. It's the central of the heavenly panel. The lion is Jesus. The lion is the centre of our adoration and our worship. And of course, anybody who's ever read any part of the scripture would know that the lion is associated with the tribe of Judah. That's written all over the place and all over Revelation. Now, the whole of this panel quite simply tells the life of King David. So we have David's kingly throne. We have his harp. This is a harp of 10 strings, where David composed many of his psalms. He was a musical psalm-writing king. We have this temple that David longed to build. He spent his life assembling the materials and making designs for this temple. And the sword of David's warrior victories. He was known as a king who made peace on every border. He was mighty in battle. The sapphire is the stone of kingliness. So this panel adheres very, very closely to the whole life of David and tells his story, the Lion of Judah. Let's go on to September. September is the sign of Virgo. So we did have we had Cancer with Leo in the panel of Judah, and then we have Virgo, the Virgin. And this panel John has made about Levi, the priest. So if you look at the symbols here, you see a lot of white stones. You've got the diamond, it governs this panel, but you also have the white moon, the white hailstone, and the white stone that is given with a new name on it. And then you have the altar of incense burning white smoke. So in Revelation, the virgins include the martyrs, or people who are pure-hearted toward the Lord. And it says of them, they are virgins. And then it also has the symbol of the heavenly mother who gives birth to the child who rules the nations. We as Christians have no trouble with a virgin giving birth. It's not a contradiction in our faith. So we've had the prophets on the Issachar panel, we've had the kings under the Judah panel, and now we have the priests here with Levi. We've had the sun under the Issachar panel, here we have the moon with Levi. So there's a whole sense of unity and balance to this whole scheme. Let's go on. So here we get to the autumnal equinox. We have the bowls of incense, the symbol of the bowls, that's associated with priestliness. And then here we have the trumpets, the Feast of Trumpets, blowing for the beginning of fall. So at the beginning of fall, there were 3 feasts together. There was the Feast of Trumpets, and it went into the Day of Atonement, very important in the Jewish practice of the year, and then that flowed into the Feast of Tabernacles. So here, this panel for October is Tabernacles, and everything about this scheme is that harvest festival. So we are under the star sign of Libra, the scales. And when we think of scales today, we usually think of justice, but when we see the scales here on this panel, we are not thinking about justice, we are thinking about harvest. So we have the scales are weighing the grain and telling us whether the harvest has been good or bad, whether we're going to feast or whether we're going to have famine. So the scales in Revelation are a symbol of famine, but they're also a symbol of abundance. So this Feast of Tabernacles celebrates the abundance of the harvest. We have the wine and the oil, which are symbols of feasting. And then 2 other symbols that are associated with Asher and with this season are the rod of iron, which breaks pots, and the bronze feet, this iron and bronze. And these are a little bit mysterious why they're associated with this part of the calendar, but it does come from blessings upon the tribes in the book of Deuteronomy, where they bless Asher, and it says his bars are iron and bronze. So iron and bronze is associated with Asher in the Old Testament. Asher's name means blessed or happy. It's the same word that in the Greek Makarios is the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. This is the word for the beginning of the Psalter. Blessed is the one who does not walk in the way of wickedness. Asher, blessed, happy. And that's a great tribal name to be associated with this season of feasting. And then we've got the amethyst, under the symbol of the amethyst of rich abundance. So that is the tabernacle symbols. We're going to move on to November. So here in November, we get into the kind of real dark part of the calendar. So November, December, and January especially, we've got really dark and much more sort of sinister themes. And we are here in this middle of the northern wall, that is the wilderness. So first of all, we're here under Scorpion, is the symbol of November. And the scorpion does feature here in the symbol. That's where Jon's locust scorpions come out of the wilderness. But the main symbol that Jon has here is the eagle, not the scorpion. And the eagle is Aquila, the star symbol that's also in this part of the sky. And so what we notice as we get to this part is that the central symbols on each wall are the four living creatures around the throne of God. So back in May we saw the bull, and then in the middle of the summer season we saw the lion. When we meet the four living creatures, we see that they have the faces of the lion, the ox, the man, and the eagle. And we're going to see that those symbols Jon prioritizes. So that's why we get Aquila here, the eagle, instead of Scorpio as our main image. We have wilderness. The wilderness is this panel right here, this theme. Living in the wilderness is the seductress, Jezebel in the letters, or Babylon later on, who gets judged. And we have in this symbol the column of fire. So remember the column of cloud over there with Simeon. Here's where the pillar of fire is. But the fire here is used both to symbolize that this is kind of a nighttime scene lit by fire, as it was in the Exodus, but also this sort of fire of judgment that belongs to this panel. The jacinth, the deep purple stone at the top, is just a very night-coloured dark stone. So we're thinking darkness around here. We're going to continue this night theme all the way through to this panel in December. So if we go back to the last few panels back in Levi, the diamond symbolises the moon of night. Then we have the amethyst, which is sometimes called the dream stone. It's the nickname for the dream stone, so it's another nighttime idea. The jacinth, we said, was a dark purple for sort of midnight. And now here we have the green peridot, and the peridot's nickname is the evening emerald. So all of these panels have this kind of consistent theme of nighttime. This is the panel where Jon most departs from any sense of the constellations or the zodiac, because this panel would be for Sagittarius, the archer or the centaur, the horseman, and there's nothing of archers or centaurs or horsemen or warriors at all in here. This whole panel is given over to the great enemy, the dragon, the serpent or Satan. Now, both the symbols of Draco and of serpens are in this part of the sky. So Jon is still is placing the dragon in his rightful place, but there's nothing of Sagittarius on this panel at all. What we do have is we're getting to the end of the night, so we have the symbol of the morning star appearing. The morning star appears as night is fading. We're still in the wilderness, and here's where we have the bottomless pit. The bottomless pit is where the locusts emerge from, and where the dragon is later imprisoned. We have this idea of pestilence. Here's this poor man surrounded by huge, scary bugs. He is suffering from pestilence. And this is also the place where we talk about the grass and the trees connected with the wilderness idea. But whenever grass and trees are either preserved or burned up, it's in this season of the calendar. The peridot is an interesting stone. The term in both Old and New Testament is this idea of chrysoprase, which is a broad term for various kinds of semi-precious stones. And I think it probably refers directly to the peridot. I have several reasons for thinking that. And one of them is that it was a very popular stone in Egypt. Probably the people of ancient Israel took all of their precious stones out of Egypt, so it's very likely they carried some peridot with them. But another thing is that it directly parallels the emerald across the opposite side with Simeon and the witnesses. And here we have the ultimate liar against the pure green emerald of truthful witness. We have the liar of Satan, who comes out to deceive the nations And so it seems like perfectly appropriate that he have a stone that is a parody of the emerald. We get to, this is the winter solstice, and we've got the lampstand. The lampstand lives here because of the Feast of Dedication, which we also call Hanukkah. And the lampstand is the strong symbol of Hanukkah because of the Maccabees and their oil not running out. But in Hanukkah it's a 9-branch lampstand, remembering the 9 days of miraculous oil, and in Revelation it's a 7-branch lampstand, but the lampstand symbol is still strong. And then here, as we cross into winter, we have the Book of Life as a symbol of hope. So 3 months to go, and we're into January. January is under the star sign of Capricorn, who is the sea goat, and I am completely unaware of any philosophy that can make sense of a sea goat as a thing. We don't have sea goats in the world. There aren't really sea goats in mythology. I don't know what it means. And yet John uses this as a symbol for his beast from the sea. So this major symbol is a beast, which I've drawn as a goat coming out of the ocean. And this whole wall of winter is associated with the ocean and death. So we've got ocean waves. Here in January, we've got the tombstone for death, and we've got the millstone being thrown into the ocean as a symbol of things fallen. So death and fallenness is the theme of this panel. And then this is also the place where Jesus talks about his identity as the one who holds the 7 stars. So the 7 stars belonging to kind of right at the end of night, as we are. Now, interestingly, Reuben is a great son to symbolize things fallen because he was born first. He was the firstborn. He had that title. But when Jacob blesses his sons, the blessing for Reuben is a bit more of a curse because he says, Reuben, you shall no longer excel. He criticizes his son Reuben because Reuben slept with his concubine. And so he demotes Reuben from that position of firstborn, and the person who ends up in it is Joseph. And interestingly, if you compare the way that the stones in the breastplate of Aaron are organized with the stones that the wall of Jerusalem are organized, there are 2 that are very obviously swapped, which is the topaz and the sardonyx. So if you keep the identification of the sons, Joseph is the sardonyx and Reuben is the topaz, then Reuben ends up here in a fallen place and Joseph gets promoted to the place of firstborn. All right, going on to what month? February, and this man. So now we're under the star symbol of Aquarius, and here is that grisly old man, the man of the sea. So we're still in the sea theme. But if you look at the panel here of what we're doing in February, I think we can see clearly that we're thinking about Adam. We're thinking about all the symbols of Adam. So on the right-hand side here, we have his tree of life and we have his garments. Adam was the man allowed to eat, the only man allowed to eat from the tree of life so far. And he was also the first man to be clothed by God when he left the Garden of Eden. God made garments for him. There's a lot of promises in Revelation of God clothing people in white garments. On the other side of the panel, we have Adam as we meet him today. So we've got the ship of the seafaring merchant, and we've got the flags of the nations. As we think about the sea and overseas, we're thinking about the nations of the world, the nations that are foreign to Israel. And Adam has gone out in ships all around the world. He has conquered lands. He has formed nations. So there's a lot of Adam imagery going with this panel, and then the stone is the beryl, which is kind of an ocean-like aqua stone. Finally, we're going to close it with this panel on March. March is under the star symbol of Pisces, and we have the 2 fishes. So this is where we talk about fish, where we talk about in Revelation the fish of the sea dying. This panel, I think that the unifying theme of the symbols is actually King Saul, the life of Saul. Saul was of the tribe of Benjamin. He was Israel's first king. The picture here is of a lonely and abandoned king, because we remember that Saul was abandoned by the Holy Spirit because he forsook God. Saul then became kind of a wolf in the flock, a wolf among the people of God, pursuing David, who was the true king and shepherd. to kill him. Saul's favourite weapon against David was his spear, which he threw at David multiple times while he was in the palace. Then this final symbol right here isn't really connected with Saul, but it's the symbol of the sickle and the labourer, which belongs here in March as well. And when we see these two together, we are remembered of the hopeful verse in the Old Testament that their swords will be turned into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. So there's some sense of redemption in this panel. The panel here is the chrysolite, which is close to white, but it's kind of a goldish white stone. And the stone it kind of parodies is directly across from it, which is the diamond of Levi, the pure white stone. And if we think about the relationship between Levi and this panel, we remember that Saul's real sin, the thing that disqualified him from being king, was really taking the role of a priest when it wasn't his to take. He didn't wait for the prophet Samuel to serve the priestly function. He went ahead and made sacrifices himself, and that was the point where God said, "I'm done with you," and withdrew his spirit from Saul. So this kind of taking up a role that doesn't belong to you is sort of evoked in this panel. And then finally we close the year back thinking about Passover again, but here's the symbol of blood as we come back to the spring equinox. So that's the whole year, and it's been exciting for me to preach the sermon series and to build this structure around the work of Austin Farrar. There's just one last thing I'd like to show you on the basis of this structure that is exciting and interesting to me. I want to think about it once more as a whole, if I could ask my cameraman to stand up the front here, we'll see if it's best. Now, so I want to just look around the room and think about could you turn it to face me here? Thanks. I want to look around the room and think about the way that the story is told through these panels of symbols, right? So if you look here to the back, here is man, here is Adam, here is where all of us start. This is where we are born. And we are born into this region of being far away from God, far away from hope, in the region of death, in the region of things that are fallen, right? So that's where we start. And if you think about this as our starting place, then this poor man has really two directions to go, right? He can turn right and go clockwise, or he can turn left and go counterclockwise. If he turns right, he's going against the flow of time, against the flow of the year. But he does have this option, and he can go to the right toward Reuben, to things that are fallen, to things that are dead. He meets the grave. He goes on and he meets the great deceiver, the dragon, who wants to devour him, and comes close to the bottomless pit. And he ends his time in this November area of Naphtali in fire and pain and torment, meeting the seductress. Like, this is quite obviously not the way he ought to go. So let's look at the alternative. If Adam is to face the other way, and if he is to turn to the left and go around the room counterclockwise, look, he's now following the forward moving flow of time, and his journey takes him forward. Like, there's sort of work and kings over here, but he gets through to the place of the Lamb, the place where he is rescued from his chains, he is freed at the Passover from his sins, and rescued from the angry mob. He is raised to new life and gets to drink from the river of the water of life. He is crowned as a victor. He comes under the righteous law of God, the truthful witness, and he becomes then part of the bride of Christ, the great servant of God, the heavenly multitude. He gets to meet the Lion of Judah face to face, and he gets to be part of this priesthood of all believers in Levi. And then finally he comes to Asher, the place of the banquet, the place of the feast, of the heavenly celebration. So I do think that the story of the whole scriptures is kind of told throughout this architecture of Revelation. And I think that exploring these images has been hugely exciting for me as I've studied the book. It's been exciting to teach, and I hope that it will be a blessing to many others.